I started DOEN non-profit organization in June of 2019, almost a year ago to the day. The reason for starting DOEN was because I became more and more convinced that we need to teach critical thinking as a set of skills in an explicit manner. Now, I've studied the curriculum statements for life orientation and a few other subjects as well, and especially in the life orientation curriculum statements, the word critical thinking appears, or the phrase appears at least 3 times, and I think that's amazing, and I think it's especially important because critical thinking is such a vital skill. However, in all my perusals of the curriculum statements and of a number of textbooks and online resources, I have never come across anything in the South African context that teaches critical thinking as a skills set in an explicit manner. And I understand why. In 2014, I was involved with the Schematis bridging program of Stellenbosch University. In fact, I started working there in 2013. I was appointed as a facilitator in critical thinking skills. Now, I'm a qualified language teacher. I have an honours degree in English literature and I have an HED. So I'm a qualified educator and my subject is English. And for that reason, it was a very natural jump to go from language to critical thinking, because critical thinking and language is extremely closely related. So in 2013, I started as a critical thinking skills facilitator with the Schematis. Schematis is the bridging program of Stellenbosch University. The project is aimed at assisting learners from disadvantaged schools and disadvantaged communities to enable them to improve their matric results, particularly in maths, accounting and science, so that they can qualify for university programs that require a strict entrance like medicine and engineering. So I was involved with that program as the critical thinking skills facilitator. Now, though the project is focused on science and maths and accounting, the originators of the program were well aware that even very smart students who do well in maths and science might not have all the necessary skills that enables them to perform at university. And critical thinking skills is one of those skills. So that is why Schematis started to incorporate critical thinking skills into their bridging program. And I started to do a lot of research about critical thinking as a subject that is taught explicitly, because I had never been aware of critical thinking skills as a subject taught at school, nor even at university, where I studied languages, literature and education, and that opened up a whole new world to me. So what is critical thinking skills? It has become a little bit of a buzzword because people use it without really knowing what they refer to, and it sounds good. Well, to some people it sounds good. There are those who get stuck on the word critical, and the word can have a negative connotation. So let's start by firstly saying what critical thinking is not. That's not only easier, but perhaps it's also more important to dispel any negative connotations. Critical thinking is not about being judgmental. It's not being critical of others and what they think. and it's also not being cynical. Critical thinking is, much like science, a process, a mindset, and a set of skills. One of the shortest definitions that I find useful as to try and explain what critical thinking is critical thinking is the ability to improve one's thinking through implementing self-evaluation. So now that we are on a very basic level familiar with what critical thinking is not and what it is and how extremely important it is, let's talk very briefly about what this resource aims to do. There are three main themes to this resource. The first one is perception. So if you think back of the definition that I've just given of critical thinking as learning how to evaluate one's self and one's own thinking, then perception is about learning how to evaluate one's interaction with the physical world through one's physical sensory systems, particularly vision and hearing, since those two are the ones that we use most often in our interactions with people that we meet in the world. The second theme is that of metacognition, and that is self-evaluation of how one develops thoughts. Metacognition simply means thinking about one's thinking. I can perhaps mention at this point that research has shown that learners who do well academically have a very high metacognitive functioning. That means they're able to think about how they think, to think about how they act, and to think about how they learn and how they understand. So metacognition in and of itself is very important to academic development and results of learners. The third theme is that of epistemology. Now, epistemology is a very complex topic in philosophy, but for the purposes of this resource, epistemology simply means an evaluation of knowledge. So, how do we know what we think we know? That's in essence the meaning of epistemology. And living in a world where we are bombarded with fact, information, knowledge, I think it's more important than ever to be very sure about how we know and what we know and what we need to know and how to go about evaluating what we think we are being told. Thank you for listening to the introduction to the Critical Thinking Resource Pack that accompanies the Life Orientation curriculum for grades 7 to 12. Please join us again. Thank you.